Good morning and welcome to another edition of The Road To. This is the July 2016 edition, which promises to be very exciting. We've got two elected officials from Loudoun County, and we also have our two Republicans facing off against each other today. We're going to start with, well, we'll see how that goes. We're going to start with Jim Parmalee, our longtime pundit on the right. And go ahead and introduce yourself, Jim.
Sure. Jim Parmalee. I run the Northern Virginia Republican PAC, as well as Republicans United for Tax Relief. And I also host another television show on this station. A couple of them, actually.
Thanks, Jim. And Mike Lane, who is another of our very long-term Republican pundits.
Hi, Patti. Good morning.
Good morning.
And to everyone. I feel sort of out of place here. Not only am I positioned to the far left on the set, but I'm in the John Flannery chair, which, you know, is going to be
a lot to live
quite interesting. I'll try and keep the commentary to a minimal. Anyway, as our regular viewers may recall, I'm the token inside the Beltway guy. I started in Arlington politics, was sentenced to a brief term on the Arlington County Board as a Republican years and years ago, wound up pursuing party office, and now I live in Alexandria and try and get other Republicans elected to office.
Thank you, Mike. And I do need to apologize ahead of time for my cough, which I thought would be gone by today because it's been 2 weeks. So apologize to the audience too. So no laughing today, just all serious. John Bell, Delegate John Bell is with us today. John, you want to tell us a little bit your background and your district?
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I represent the 87th District, which is Loudoun County, and a little bit of Prince William County in the Haymarket area. I live in South Riding, which is pretty much in the middle of the district. It's a fast-growing district right around the Dulles Airport. I'm a retired Air Force officer. I was a finance officer in the military, and I do that kind of work now. So I enjoy crunching numbers, and I enjoy trying to find efficiencies and savings, and very much look forward to a great discussion today.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of the stuff you accomplished this past session in a little while.
Thank you.
And Phyllis Randall is here. As an elected official, she's chairwoman of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, and as most of our viewers know, has been a longtime pundit. Phyllis, do you want to tell us how it's going and give us your standard intro?
Well, the intro will change a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll start where I always start, which is I'm the mother of two wonderful sons and the wife of a wonderful, wonderful husband. I'm a community activist in Loudoun County, where I've lived for 23 years. I am currently the chair of Virginia State Board of Corrections, and for the past 6 months, I've also been very, very blessed to serve as chair at large of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, a position I was elected to in November, and I am enjoying it very much. It is going quite well.
Great. I'm getting good reviews, too.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to start off this morning. We were just all chatting about what an incredible week it's been, just in a lot of ways. But we did want to start off with impressions, assessments of the FBI director's announcement that there would be no indictment against Hillary Clinton, and added some kind of scolding language along with that, but bottom line was no legal repercussions. So why don't we start with Jim, because I'm sure you have some thoughts?
Well, I mean, I thought what was interesting was it was clear that from his statement, he gave a whole press conference explaining all the various ways in which he broke the law, and then said, "But we're not going to prosecute." And I was a little surprised at that. I wonder what the rank and file folks in the government, if they were to have, set up a separate email server, put classified documents on their hard drive. In some cases, altering them so that they did not look classified, and then continually tell people they weren't classified, they weren't classified, they weren't classified, and then have the FBI discover, oh look, they were all classified, and then we still don't know all the emails because a number of them were deleted by her lawyers, which we probably will, and other ways which we will never ever find out. So they did a very effective job in getting rid of the evidence.
Though, Jim, there was no discussion about who actually originally put on information that was then deemed classified. So
Well, no, these were not, in fact, the Post's fact checkers, and they're pretty, the Post is a pretty liberal paper. So when they tell
Didn't
you
endorse
that
me.
Hillary Clinton deserves a bunch of Pinocchios, then if you're a liberal, you probably do. The FBI pointed out a lot of these were classified. They were these were not largely retroactively classified. As Hillary first said they weren't classified, then I guess she said, well, they were retroactively classified. And then it turns out, no, there were a lot of emails that were classified. She knew they were classified. She put them on the server anyway. And, well, we're trying to get into her mind, but,
Again,
but she spent a lot of time setting up a private server so that people wouldn't be able to find out what she was doing. And when someone does all of that, then you wonder when they then put all the classified information on their server and then delete a bunch of it. It raises
I'm gonna
questions.
go to John
And
on
what would
this
happen to
because-
what would happen to an average government employee pulling that stunt?
I'd like to comment on that, but I can't. John? John might be able to, though.
Well, there's a few things I disagree with your opinion. Number one, the director who, in his testimony yesterday, said he was a lifetime Republican. He was part of the Whitewater investigation, and he was clearly not on Hillary Clinton's side. So I think it was good that he was actually the one who released this information and who oversaw what happened. The investigation. So I think, frankly, we should have faith that it was fair. The other side, he said that there was no criminal activity. He said there was no evidence that any reasonable prosecutor would prosecute, would take to court. And, the precedents, you mentioned, private email servers. No, I've worked in the government my whole life. My time in the military, I had classified and unclassified email. I never had my own private server. I certainly got a lot of emails, but not that many. But Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell, both in the same position, had private servers.
Not even. Actually, no. They didn't. They used. Powell used. They didn't have their own servers, I believe. They had used private services, but only for a very limited number of emails. I think in one case it was 20 emails, and the other case it was 2, which is not setting up a server and running the government through it and having hundreds of suspicious emails.
I would disagree with your take, because if you have a private email that's not on the government system, it's on a server somewhere, and it's not on the government server. So I think that's a clear differentiation between the two.
The Post looked at the liberal Post looked at those and said it was just not even the same thing.
I think if we sum this up, frankly, there was no criminal information worthy of going to trial with.
That's the key phrase.
Were there mistakes made? Yes. I think,
Were there criminal activities
could this have been? No, there weren't. And that's what the investigation said.
There was.
Could this have been
there
done?
was.
Could this have been done better?
Did she know what
yes,
she was doing?
It could have been done better, and I think there should be lessons learned. And I think, if Secretary Clinton had to do this over again, she certainly would make sure things were done differently.
Well, let me ask you though. I mean, he laid out what was done that was illegal. He laid it out.
What I think we should be concerned with is all the money that was wasted from people who say they want to waste
protect
government
classified
money.
information.
Well, clearly there was no classified information at the time
was.
put on there.
No, wait.
Let me go to Mike, guys. Let me go to Mike because I'm sure he has an
He made it
opinion
very
on this.
clear there was classified information on our server.
On that
It's called a
point,
spill, and it happens every single day.
actually, if you take
go ahead.
that-
Go, Mike.
All right. I, on balance, would agree more with Jim than with John on this. But, I think, I'm just going to read between the lines. I think what FBI Director Comey did was he looked at the evidence. He concluded there were violations of the law, but he was not going to personally, since Loretta Lynch committed like the biggest ethical faux pas by having her private meeting with Bill Clinton in Phoenix, and she put him on the spot and saying his recommendation was going to be it. He was not going to insert himself into the course of changing history by having this be a direct indictment of a nominated candidate for president. So he said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to back off this. We're not going to do it. But in his statement and in his testimony before Congress, I think he just indicted her tremendously in the court of public opinion with everything that she did, and now it's up to the voters to consider. I mean, they went through a litany of questions and answers in the testimony. Secretary Clinton testified that she never knowingly sent or received classified information. Was she telling the truth? No, she was not. Secretary Clinton did this. Was she telling the truth? No, she was not. 10 questions. Was she telling the truth? Director Comey? No, she was not. So, I mean, it's pretty clear that, to me, that Comey was trying to indict Secretary Clinton in the court of public opinion, showing that she had committed all these violations, but he was not going to insert himself into changing the course of history by recommending an indictment under the circumstances. It's clear to me we have now something, a new term, a new hashtag, Clinton privilege. You know, anybody else. Director Comey was asked, what would happen if someone who worked for your organization did this? Fired, you know? And so here she is, you know, where she should be fired like any other government employee, and what she's doing is she's asking for a promotion from Secretary of State to President.
Without intent, I would totally
Well, I
disagree.
think
But there
the
was clear
intent was there.
There was clear intent. I mean, she set up
Well,
the whole
the
system.
intent-
I don't know how you guys are gauging her
She
intent.
set up a separate system.
Secretary Clinton said,
Not to hide classified.
Secretary Clinton said she
Good.
wanted to make it easy and only use one particular device.
Yeah.
Did she use one particular device? No, she used 4 devices.
That
You
was
know,
a
I mean,
mobile device. And
but-
when you're,
but that
when
was
you're
what she
visiting
said, was
100
she only
countries,
wanted to-
Devices are devices.
when you're visiting 100 countries, you
Patti,
yeah.
I'm not justifying that why she didn't do it. I'm saying she lied to the American people when she said her primary purpose was to simplify it and use only one device. She knew she used 4 devices when she made that comment, and she lied to the American people. I mean, this
For
is a
mobile
pattern of
devices,
hers.
that had to do with one BlackBerry. Anyway,
No.
let's go, Phyllis. You
Does it
got
mean-
a
does it
take.
depend
I mean,
on what the
think
meaning
you.
of
I think you have a good
is?
overall take on that. I just think the intent question is.
The first thing I want to do is correct something Mike said when he said that Attorney General Lynch set up a private meeting with Bill Clinton. That did not happen. She did not set up a private meeting with Bill Clinton. They did have an ill-advised meeting on the tarmac, and it should not have happened. And they've been, and they both, and Secretary Lynch, Attorney General Lynch has made that very clear. But let's not go indicting her. I also want to say that, you know, James Comey, besides his political affiliation, there's a reason an FBI director gets a term as long as they get, and that is so that they can actually do their job without any political influence one way or the other. And to decide that he, you know, that he gave Ms. Clinton privilege, Secretary Clinton privilege, decide that he's not doing his job. And I don't think I want to be the person that says that the FBI director is not doing their job. Having said all that, I do think that there are times that the Clintons make it hard for their supporters to continue to support them. They require us to have to explain them too often. And I will disagree a little bit with my friend Mr. Bell in that I would say these were not mistakes. Mistakes is when you mean to turn right and you turn left. These are decisions, and they were poor decisions. Were they decisions that should require her to be indicted and be jailed? Maybe not, but they were poor decisions. And I think it's okay for people who support Secretary Clinton and Democrats to say, you know what? This was a bad moment for her, and she was less than forthcoming about various items. But to say that both the Attorney General and the Secretary and basically the entire government is colluding on her behalf does absolutely go a step too far.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of colluding. I think there's a lot of, she did this, we don't want to disrupt the presidential election over it, so we're going to give her a pass when we wouldn't give her a pass if she were an average government employee, or if she worked for the Loudoun County government,
these decisions
or the Virginia General Assembly.
Again, then what you're saying is that the director of the FBI made a political decision. Do you want to indict him on that? Because I don't.
I think he made I don't know if I'd categorize it as political, as pragmatic, as wanting to just punt the thing.
I think he did his job.
But he made a decision.
I think the director of the FBI
he made a
did his job.
decision for Hillary Clinton that he
did
would
his
not
job.
have made, presumably, for another government
I'm not going
employee.
to presume what
He
you
testified to that.
You can categorize that however
He
you want.
testified to that this was specifically a Clinton decision, and that don't use this as a precedent or anything else to apply to anybody else in the government, because they will face consequences and discipline for doing the same thing.
And
He
the
testified to
and
that.
the question is, why doesn't she? So.
Well, and just to kind of sum that up, if every senior official in the government who has a clearance had to hand over 30,000 of their emails, I would bet you a lot of money.
That's why you use your government email address.
It has
so you don't have
nothing
to
to
worry
do
about
with
it.
that.
Because then the
It has-
government IT
has
guys
nothing to do with
have
that.
them all.
It has to do with content in the emails that was classified in one world and out in the public in another. And it just happened to me yesterday. I read a classified document on something happening in Africa, and this morning it was on the news, the exact same thing.
But that's why you don't send all that stuff through a private account.
There is no classification God. This is not black and white. I'm going to end it there. We're going to talk about vice presidential. This will be much more fun. So let's start with the Trump vice presidential. Mike, who do you think's got the edge? Why?
I have no idea. Look, there have been a number of names that have been floated recently in the last week as being vetted, shortlist, whatever you want to call them. Donald Trump has spent the last year surprising people, doing the unexpected, and coming up with the unpredictable kind of thing. I think it would be foolish of us to go with the conventional wisdom and say that the names being leaked now are that's where the short list is confined to. If I had to bet, I would bet it would be better than a 50-50 chance that we're going to find somebody that's not been leaked to the press that comes out, and that's the person. I look forward to finding out who it is, but I genuinely have no idea where he's going.
I noticed our producer put Governor Mary Fallon from Ohio.
Yeah, she's not one of the ones who's been bandied about. She's not one of the ones who's been bandied about largely in the last week or 10 days.
Yeah, I don't know much at all about her.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Can I say I think what's incredible about us talking about a VP pick for Donald Trump is how many Republicans don't even want him to be their presidential pick.
Yeah.
And the Stop Republican movement Stop Trump movement that is gaining a lot of steam. For the Republican convention that will happen next week in Cleveland. It is amazing to me. Normally Republicans are the ones that fall in line. It is amazing to me how many Republicans, conservatives, have said that this person, Mr. Trump, is completely unable and does not have the skill set, the tone, does not have what he needs to do.
It is amazing. It's also amazing to me.
Let me also say this. What's also something is, I think my friend Mike is right. We may be surprised at who the VP pick is because so many Republicans have taken their name out of the running to be VP because they've said, I don't want anything to do with him.
Yeah.
The number of Republicans who said, I won't even attend this convention, and the reasons they're given. I mean, everything from I have to wash my hair to I want to spend time with my grandchildren, so I can't even be at the convention. So it may be an interesting pick because no one wants to not only be his vice president, they want to be at the convention with him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed at how many folks in the Democratic Party believe that Hillary Clinton has stolen the nomination from Bernie Sanders.
Talk about
and how
the VP
angry
pick.
they are
Right.
about that.
Bernie, who still has not endorsed Hillary.
So I think, a lot of folks in the Democratic Party are feeling the burn. I'm not sure who Donald Trump will pick. I think Newt Gingrich is probably, a front. I don't know if there's a single front runner, but Newt Gingrich sounds like the type of choice that he might make on that. And he would have experience in government. He would certainly be able to give a good speech. And he has, I think he'd be a solid choice.
Even though he's ran out of his office when he was.
Well, if he picks him, ethics won't be an issue in the election. That's for sure.
Even though he's run out of his office when he was Speaker of the House.
I'm not sure you can categorize it like that, but if we were to
Newt's been rehabilitated.
Yeah, kind of like Bill Clinton, but and nobody accused Newt Gingrich of any of the terrible things that Bill Clinton did.
They did. That's why he had to leave office. Of course they did. That's exactly why he had to leave.
Many major
I don't believe
ethical
anyone
lapses.
took away his law license, although
I believe is
not a lawyer. But no, I mean the level.
He didn't commit perjury. He didn't have sex with an underage intern in the Oval Office. He didn't,
sexually harass his employees.
23 is not underage.
Sexually harassing his employees, lying to a grand jury, going down the line. I mean,
All right, let's get back on the topic. I'm going to go to John.
Bill Clinton.
No, I think the topic is the Trump VP.
The topic is Trump VP.
I think I like Mike's approach. That I think that frankly will be a surprise. I mean, this whole Trump campaign has been nothing but a surprise. The thing that I find interesting about it is that, as my friend Phyllis said, that I don't see any of the top tier Republicans really on there. I see people who are has-beens, as Newt Gingrich, who has had a number of, a family values candidate who has a number of family values lapses, who has a host of ethical problems, And I see other people who I'm not sure they're really add to the ticket. But if I would think logically you would pick someone who would help the ticket the most. And I go through the different ones that are in the leak list, and I think it's Chris Christie's probably still up there. And I would think that we didn't talk about him, but I think he would still be up there, even though he's suffered some damage with the bridge and other incidents. But I think overall it'll be a surprise pick because everything has been a surprise, and I think Mr. Trump likes to surprise.
I think right now in the Republican Party, we have to figure out who they're going to pick for their presidential pick, to be quite honest, because to stop Trump moving, from what I understand.
Do you think it's wrong? Do you guys?
No. Here's
It's a couple dozen delegates.
No, it's more than a couple. But won't the Rules Committee stop it before it can gain any steam at the convention?
My guess is that as I see who is on the Rules Committee, that the Never Trump forces don't have the votes on the Rules Committee to change the rules.
How many are they short? Seriously, how many? Because I
believe they have 10 out of
no, seriously.
It also depends on the lawsuits.
On the rules, I think they've got about 20,
we got lawsuits out there whether people
the
can
Rules
vote
Committee.
against what the popular vote was.
Yeah, it's not enough.
So you need 50 plus 1.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So there's a lot percolating underneath that, but let's just cover the Democratic nominee, who you think the likely VP nominee is going to be. I'm going to start with John.
Let me first say on the Republican, I can't wait to see that convention. It's going to be great to be there.
I'm going to be there.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be
huge.
Having said that, I look at each candidate again, trying to think of it politically, who's going to help the ticket the most. And because of my personal interactions, I'm a fan of Tim Kaine, and I hope that that Senator Kaine is selected. I mean, he's a smart, honest, good public servant, and he also has a lot to offer in a key swing state. He speaks Spanish and can appeal to many people who Donald Trump has offended. And I think that he would bring a lot to the ticket. Certainly there's some other ones that have been leaked in the favorite list I think would be tough to pick because a sitting senator such as Cory Booker in a state with a Republican governor who would then appoint a Republican senator and lose a seat, I don't think that's a strategy decision that makes much sense. So I think Tim Kaine is there. I mean, he is. I hope that he is selected, and it'll be interesting to find out.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I think Senator Kaine is, he brings a lot to the ticket. The single biggest problem with Tim Kaine is he's pro-life, and the Democratic Convention has not entertained the idea in the last 40 years of a pro-life person even addressing the convention from the podium. I remember when Governor Casey of Pennsylvania was just flatly rejected. No, you may not have the podium. No, you may not address the convention because you are pro-life. They're not particularly tolerant on that. So in order to make that marriage work, do the anti-life forces mute their opposition to Tim Kaine, or does he flip-flop and change his position? But one of those two has to happen. I'm not sure which it is. Beyond that, the other ones that are bandied around.
I think he's had a long time, for a long time, has articulated as a personal religious position that is different than the law of the land, which allows for abortion as a procedure when needed.
Actually, to clarify, he doesn't want to restrict anyone else's choices. He said personally he is against abortion and would not do that in his family. And I think many people who are in the pro-choice arena feel the same way.
Yeah, and they're not anti-life. But anyway, Phyllis, what's your thought?
Well, listen, we're sitting in the middle of Virginia.
We all know Tim.
We do all know Senator Kaine. For the very reasons John said, I think he brings a lot to the ticket. I think he brings some, he's not the most charismatic guy, but I always say I'm not electing my best friend, I'm electing a president and a vice president, and so I don't need anyone to light up the stage. I need them to walk in there, be competent, which Mr. Trump is not, know what he's doing, what Mr. Trump does not, no policy, no foreign policy, which Mr. Trump, good Lord knows, does not.
Is the vice president running against Mr. Trump?
Well, the person who selected the vice president, the most important qualification is they can be president if that horrible day ever comes. That is the most important qualification. I also think that it does matter that we're sitting in a state where the governor is a Democrat, because you won't lose that seat. I think Mr. Booker, and I've been following and admiring Cory Booker for a very long time, but I would not say that I think he would be ready to step into a president's position if required. Right now, and we all saw this with Governor Palin. Can you imagine if Governor Palin has to step into the presidency? Your vice president has to be ready to take the mantle if required. And I think Tim Kaine is. Yeah. In fact, I'm sure Tim Kaine is.
Yeah, yeah. Tim?
Well, I like Tim Kaine personally. He is hugely wrong on a lot of issues. I think there's one person in the Democratic Party who has earned the vice presidential nomination, if not the presidential nomination, the man who seems to have the heart of the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders. So she should pick Bernie Sanders, or she should step aside and let him be the nominee.
She should definitely not pick Bernie Sanders. And let me make a good portion of my party upset when I say, I don't think Bernie Sanders would be ready to step in and be the president. Thus, she should not pick Bernie Sanders. He's saying that because he wants to be the vice Republican. Don't listen to him.
I'll tell you this. I prefer the idea of a Bernie Sanders presidency than I do a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Because you think Donald Trump could beat him. That's a low bar. That is a low bar, but I would take him over her.
Jim, competency is different than people making mistakes. Anyway,
and
so we're going to break for a minute or two. I just wanted to wrap that discussion up by saying Tim Kaine is a wonderful person. I think his charisma comes from being a really good person, and I think that puts him in the favorite seat, in addition to being from Virginia and have been a popular lieutenant governor, and senator from Virginia, I think. And I do think he's a moderate, very much. I think you guys are wrong saying you disagree. Yeah. You do not disagree with all his positions. He's a very sensible, moderate.
And he's the mayor of Richmond.
Anyway, we'll be right back after the break. Thanks.
Since September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for. Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for. One nation.
Under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty.
And justice.
For all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America.
Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
You'd never know it on the battlefield, but nearly half of today's military are National Guard and reservists. However, they can't answer our nation's call without their employer's support. If you're an employer, visit esgr.org and find out how to do your part. After all, their response depends on yours.
This is Mommy's bed. Me and Jenny were jumping on it. Mommy's gun fell on the floor. I was a cowboy. Bang, 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 bang. I said, Jenny, wake up, it's just pretend. But she wouldn't wake up.
I am sick of this. I'm sick of dealing with you. I'm sick of
I work 6 days a week.
Who do you think you
are?
Don't you ever talk back to me again! You just shut up!
What are you crying about?
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life. Teach carefully. We can show you how. Act Against Violence. Call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promised.
Okay, hon.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promised.
What kind of man are you?
I'm a father.
Look here, my father was a father, and he smoked his brains out in the house.
Watch as he blows those smoke rings on my little red face.
You probably have asthma.
Asthma? Schmasthma. I'm telling you, nothing's gonna happen to your kids.
I swear.
Don't swear when you're lying. You know very well that thousands of kids get bronchitis, ear infections, and even pneumonia from their parents' cigarette smoke. And didn't you promise your little angels you'd smoke outside?
Hey, Daddy.
Those little devils are just so sweet.
Do the right thing.
Please, smoke outside.
Until you can stop, go out for your kids.
Take the pledge. Call 1-800-513-1157.
As time flows on, there are places we return to again and again. Precious places. Timeless places. Places that, with your help, can endure forever. I'm Paul Newman. Help the Nature Conservancy save the last great places around the world.
Welcome back to The Road to Part 2 for July 2016. We're going to go to John Bell, our delegate here, and he's going to give us an update on the session and some of the legislation that you introduced and how that went.
First off, it was just a tremendous honor to serve in the House of Delegates and to be a part of that very proud body and long tradition. Every day I walked in there and looked at the surroundings, it was just overwhelming. So great honor.
Cool.
I think the session was a very good session, and people have often asked me what was my biggest surprise, and it was how nice everyone was from both sides of the aisle. Everyone really works together. There are 90% of the things we all agree about, and there's about 10% that we fight about. And you know, I think most people in the Virginia way really work towards the common good. I think it was a great session. The budget we passed was a very good budget. From a couple of perspectives, given my finance background, we paid off the $140 million debt that was borrowed against VRS, the retirement system, early. I think that takes a monkey off our back and helps us out for future years. It's a budget that was basically put in with a 1% holdback. So basically we budgeted as if revenues would come in 1% lower than were projected, which gives us a projection, gives us some protection there. In Loudoun County, we had a change to the cost composite to Loudoun County's favor, which actually gave us $60 million more in the first year, which I think is important. It helps us for the high cost area and other things we deal with. We also put in a...
How did that happen?
Well, there's a number of factors that go in the cost composite. And it factors in different cost factors, building, and basically the cost of running the area, and it comes up with a cost index. And that determines how much the county pays versus how much the Commonwealth pays. And it was just a 1% difference, but that's $60 million. It's a lot of money. I put in a bill for cost to compete, a budget amendment, which it didn't, the compromise wasn't what I put in, but actually was better than what I put in. I asked for money in FY18, but it actually was split up and put in 17 and 18, $17 million each year. And that benefits high cost areas as well for some of the division positions that include speech therapists and other positions in high cost areas that are really hard for the higher, you know, the areas in Northern Virginia and other places that are more expensive to pay. I was honored to get a bill passed, and another one came through and was incorporated in that one. But they're both consumer protection bills on notification, buyer beware type things. We've had in Loudoun County a number of our rural properties where people have bought land and they didn't realize there was going to be a winery next door to them or a farm brewery, and suddenly there's a lot of traffic. So it's to try to make sure buyers know that in advance so we can avoid those kind of situations. The other thing I was able to get passed is a bill that lets people know in land that they buy. We have a lot of land where we've built houses and you can't have septic systems, so they have alternative systems, and unfortunately the maintenance is sometimes high. And we have information to let them know before they get into that situation that they're going to face that. So I had a wide variety of bills put in. Some of them we're going to work on again next year. They were complicated. I want to do LED lights on all of our roads and highways and government buildings. That saves 50% of electricity, and they last 10 years versus 2. And they're made in America. So I think there's a lot of good reason to do things like that. And I'm trying.
They figured out how to not make them that like annoying bluish color, right?
Actually, this was one of the things that I learned a lot about light hues. Is they're more than I ever thought I would. But there are many different light hues, and we have some of our parks that have been designated dark skies parks, and we have many nature and other studies going on there, and we want to make sure the light hue doesn't interfere with what they're doing, because that would hurt us in tourists and other things. So absolutely there's many different ways to make sure that we can change this out and get the savings without having an adverse impact.
Sounds great.
So we had a great session, and I think we got quite a bit accomplished.
All right. Any you guys have questions?
No, I just want to say whatever you can do for the Virginia wine industry. Magnifico, great industry, brings in a lot of revenue, and I'm sure our chairman of the Loudoun County Board knows how important that revenue is to her county.
I couldn't agree more. We have a wonderful wine industry. It's growing very fast. And I want to work more with the Virginia tourist industry to combine. You know, I think we have a couple things that are really underutilized. Bringing tours in where they could visit the journey through Hollow Ground and our wineries.
I spend a lot of money in Loudoun County at wineries.
And we appreciate that.
Let me ask you
There's
though.
my sister from Alexandria, like every weekend.
Let me ask you, and this is a bipartisan concern, although Governor McAuliffe is the one implementing it. Why, after a massive tax increase for transportation, why are we putting tolls on so many roads in Northern Virginia? Why do we tax ourselves? And then they're going to put tolls on 66. We've already got tolls on the Beltway and on 95. 95 they're extending. 395 they want to extend tolls. Why do we have what's going on with this? And why are they rushing so quickly? I suspect it's so that they can do it before opposition can form. What's going on with that?
There is the governor is very committed to program Transform 66 to relieve congestion, get people a more predictable path through that. I love the governor. I consider him a friend. I disagree with the tolls as well. I introduced 2 bills and joined Delegate Jim LeMonion as a co-patron on several other bills against the 66 tolls, both inside and outside the Beltway. And I voted against every one of those bills.
But the bill with LeMonion, didn't it support tolls if there was any new pavement at all? And they decided to widen part of one lane on one side of the, they widened like this much, and then they put tolls on this much.
Again, well, his bill actually got killed and it got incorporated into the budget amendment. And you know, bottom line is I'd like to see more of the transportation dollars come to Northern Virginia. And I agree with you, we don't need to toll for that. The compromise that was made was to add 1 lane on eastbound between the Beltway and the Glebe Road.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
And frankly, I don't think that's nearly enough.
Right, because the governor keeps saying, and people keep saying, and I think your website said something about, you know, widening, that you'd support, or one of your press releases that you would support tolls if there was widening. But to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but in this case, you're not even widening a lane. They're inside the Beltway. They're widening part. 1 lane for a tiny portion on one side of the Beltway, and they're putting tolls on one side of 66, and they're putting tolls on both sides. You know, so it's really amazing. It's like I give you a penny, or I give you $1, you give me back a penny.
Well, what's actually happening between the Beltway and, say, Roslyn or the Key Bridge
tolls.
Exit? What's happening with the number of lanes?
There's going to be 1 eastbound lane added, was the compromise.
Okay.
But not that whole length.
No, not the whole length.
Tiny part, like
what? Well, actually, it's the portion where 80%.
2 miles, 4 miles.
It's the portion where 80% of the traffic is at.
where
So
it
beyond
all
that,
comes
you've only got
together.
20%. So if you add the 1 lane there,
But the
it's
traffic
really-
getting to that point, and the traffic leaving that point, still is that we didn't get the lane, is what I'm saying.
The bottom,
even if we
that's not true. They did add a lane. They added a lane for that stretch, which has the most traffic.
to a tiny part.
Glebe, right?
Yeah, they did add a lane though. You're saying they didn't, and they did.
They added 1 lane on part of one side of 66.
Thank you for agreeing.
Part. Right. No, I am agreeing. The drivers of Northern Virginia are getting completely taken advantage of. They're being told they've gotten all of this pavement when they're getting a teeny tiny bit of pavement.
Jim, I don't know how
they're
many
getting
times
tolls.
you drive that, but I do.
I do. I've driven it a lot.
I like the fact
How
that he
many
says
years?
they're
25
being
years?
told
Enjoy
something.
the toll. Enjoy the
double
toll.
entendre there.
Well, what I see
Phyllis's
happening
turn.
is the biggest bottleneck being right where the toll road extension comes into 66. That is always jammed up. Yeah. So from there to Glebe, is that the lane to Glebe? Because Glebe is where it starts alleviating.
That's where it's. I mean, I take that to work every day, and that section is the most congested, and the studies back that up. However, there's some things that need to be done as well that would make it even better. For instance, if you're on the Dulles Connector entering 66, and you want to get on the metro at East Falls Church,
right.
You have to go around, get off at 7.
Right.
So you're paying to get on 66 with a toll. Then you're getting off, and you're taking a pretty convoluted way around.
Yeah.
I'm advocating to get an exit there so you can get off of that. Plus, if you're on the Dulles Connector, you're 2 miles before you get to 66, and are you going to be notified, exit now, or you will pay a toll? I mean, I'm against the tolls in 66. We agree on that. I think we need more funding in Northern Virginia, and the bottom line is that the compromise. I'm glad it added capacity, but we need to do more than that. And it didn't add enough. I mean, it is, I understand it's very expensive if we move forward beyond that because of the metro and where it's at. It's going to cost a lot of money to widen lanes beyond the point where they did, and they did add it where it would give us the most bang for the buck. But I don't think that nearly solves the problem inside the Beltway, and I don't think it nearly solves the problem for 66.
But why are we having? Why do we have?
Phyllis
Why
needs to
after
talk.
so many times? but just maybe, and this affects folks in Loudoun too. Why did we have such a massive tax increase for transportation and now tolls on 66? Why couldn't the governor have just agreed to put in that tiny little bit of part of one lane and not put tolls
Which
on?
cost
Put tolls.
X millions of dollars.
That's right. The huge amounts of new taxes that we're paying
I think
for transportation.
you're having an
why
unfortunate
the
moment.
tolls?
I think you're having an unfortunate moment because you're looking for a fight with two Democrats who actually agree with you that we don't.
So why can't you get the
So-
governor to
so-
do the right thing?
Because I'm not his,
Go ahead.
because the people elected the governor, and I'm not his boss. So that's why I can't get the governor.
The governor didn't
Well,
say he was
there's
going to put
obviously a
tolls on
fiscal reason,
66.
or he's not. I mean,
He likes our money.
I mean, I went to the VDOT hearings before when the decision was still being made, testified against the tolls on 66 both times, and one of the questions I asked is there were 18 VDOT engineers who had studied the traffic there, and I said, how many of you have taken this road in between the rush hour going forward and back? Not a one of them. And I said, well, then you don't understand this problem, in my opinion. You need to come and ride this road. And the varying tolls, I am really against the dynamic tolling because where the prices would adjust based on the capacity. I think it's going to be very hard for families to budget knowing how much they're going to spend if it's different every day they take the road. And I think that's a problem.
Listen, in Loudoun, we have the Greenway, and it doesn't even have any differences in the toll for the difference that you are moving. And so one of my colleagues, Ron Myers, ran on and has, to his credit, pushed a Greenway alternative, Shellhorn Road. And Loudoun County's Board of Supervisors actually has in our statements that go down to the General Assembly that we disagree with the tolls on 66 for various reasons. We do need more funding capacity in Northern Virginia. We have received some funding capacity in recent years through the NVTA funding. We've of course have a myriad of House bills that have brought more funding capacity to Northern Virginia. We know that we have been behind in the money we needed up here to build the roads we need. But is tolling people to this extent the right choice? I think not. I think it is an extra tax, and I think it's a hardship for people who can least afford it. Which brings me to my next place in Loudoun County, which is, of course, our long haul buses and our metro buses. The metro's coming to Loudoun County, and we really would like people to get on the metro and ride it. That will lessen your costs. You don't have to pay the taxes. Pay the tolls, and of course it lessens congestions on the road. And so different localities should do what they think is right for their people in their area. For us, long haul buses, the metro is correct. Loudoun, both the past board and this current board that took office on January 1st have both stated that we were not in agreement of all the tolling on inside and outside 66. So
either way, it's a user fee, right?
It's a user fee.
Well, but yeah, if it were a private road, and my libertarian friends, if it were a privately operated road, a totally private road, like the Greenway is closer to the libertarian ideal than that. But this isn't. Right. This is in large part. They say it's a public-private partnership. The government's deeply involved in this, and for the Beltway ones, and the.
You have a show after this show. You should say all this stuff on the show you have next week. Things you want to talk about.
It's a government.
At this point, we're all kind of agreeing with you.
It's a government road. It's a government road. They're taking our government taxes.
I hope you're not suggesting the Greenway is a successful thing, because that's a disaster.
I'm saying you have more of a. They're at least it's privately.
Always empty.
What I love about the Greenway is that there's never a car on it. You're
it's convenient when you're willing to pay, right?
Well,
all right,
I've been caught in jams there.
Given this past week's events, we would be remiss if we didn't have an intelligent conversation about how it sort of illustrates a larger, longer-term problem in the society with, I guess the way I would see it is there's a lot of documentation via cell phone video now that a lot of police of whatever color are not treating all of their clients appropriately, let's put it that way. And then to witness the retaliation against cops who had nothing to do with the original events. I want to start with Phyllis, since she's our African American citizen here.
Glad you didn't say token.
There's no token,
Well,
nothing token about Phyllis. I'm just saying because she can.
I have
closer to
two
it.
sons.
Yeah.
And I have so many people in my life that I love. And the truth is, African American males are 3 times more likely to die with an interaction with a police officer than their non-African American counterparts. Now, you can say what you want. That's a high number, and there's a reason for that number. And the reason doesn't just happen when the police department with the police department. There's a study that showed that African American and Hispanic children are seen as less childlike when they make a mistake. In other words, their mistakes are seen to be more maniacal or intentional than a child who's not a person of color. This is an issue in our society, and it will not go away unless we talk about it. And we have to have thought leaders who can do this and have these discussions in a rational, reasonable way without pointing fingers, without calling names, without saying it doesn't exist, without saying all of it's racism. We have to be able to have the conversations without the accusation nor without the denials. There is something going on in our country with our law enforcement and especially our young men of color. That is undeniable. When my children were young and throughout their lives, we sat them down and had a long discussion with how to not treat police officers respectfully, because that's a given that they better do that, but how to survive an interaction with the police officer. And not a month goes by that I don't say to my kids, and they're young men now, what do you do when a police officer stops you? And they have it down. Put my hands on the dashboard. Don't do anything different. Sit still. Tell them I'm going to reach for my wallet. Count to 5 before I reach for my wallet. Then tell them again. This discussion does not happen to this degree in families who do not have African American males.
I've never heard this discussion.
It happens. You grab any black parent on the street and ask them the discussion they have with their boys especially about how to survive an encounter with a police officer, and they can run through it. There are groups of people, especially in our fraternities and our sororities, who do nothing but have whole sessions with our boys on how to survive or encounter with police officers. And so to say it's just because they're not following the rules is not correct and not okay. On the other side, before I became chair, worked in the jail for 15 years. My father was in the military for my entire life. You will be hard pressed to find anybody who does not have more respect for what our people in uniform do every single day. But at the same time, we can acknowledge that our police officers, by and large, the vast majority of them, do a fantastic, wonderful job, and do a job when we're moving into community policing and CIT training and all those things, crisis intervention training and all those things, and still acknowledge that when we have the police officers, the encounters do not go well, more than not, those police officers do not receive any consequences. For the very few police officers who are not doing things well, there are not consequences. And at some point, the communities are not going to, something has to be said about that. The killings of those 5 police officers in Texas was a horrific, terrible thing, and that is not the answer. That is not the answer. That should never, ever happen again. The killings of our men is also not okay and cannot continue to happen. Both those things can live, and both those things can be equally true, and one does not cancel out the other.
And that was beautiful, Phyllis. And the one thing that really scares me, because I started getting text messages from some of my family members, some of my brothers who are, oh, I'm scared, you know. They're all white, and I don't know what they're that scared about, but they're scared about the cycle of the generalization cycle, right? Like generalizing about cops generalizing about black males. I mean, that is the vicious cycle.
You can almost find any black male over the age of 21 and say, tell me your last cop interaction. First of all, they're going to have one.
Yeah.
They're going to have one. My son was walking from his college campus to his dorm when a cop came up on him and said to the person who met your description, you know, can you sit down, do this. He did everything. He did everything. And what the cop do? Called another police officer up. By the time they finished, there were 4 police officers who had my son on the ground. My son, who said, I can show you my license that says I'm walking in school. I'm a student. When then a call came in that said, it wasn't him, we've got the person, the response was to say, take the cuffs off him and let him go. Not an apology, not anything. It did nothing but anger him. Yeah. And this is my son who's had very positive interactions with police officers. Yeah. Very positive interactions with police officers. There is an issue, and we cannot just keep denying it, and we cannot have people who are just bombastic try to have the conversations, because those people can't have the conversations. We have to have real thought leaders who are willing to have these conversations, and we can't keep denying it.
I agree that we need to look at this. There's data, there's studies that show we have an issue, and we need to deal with it. I also say my heart goes out to the victims. I think we need to look at once. Frankly, a suspect is on the ground or contained, why are we using deadly force? I think we need to look at that. I think that deadly force should be the last option.
No, we don't need to look at that. We need to stop that, if indeed it happens. I don't know that, I interpret the last tape the same way you do. But
I'm saying we need to look at the procedure, but I agree with you. Do we need to stop that?
But people on the ground can still shoot you.
They certainly can, but some of the videos we've seen, clearly people were incapacitated.
Only if they have a gun in their hand can they still shoot you. If they don't have a gun in their hand, they actually can't still shoot you. And the last thing that happened in Baton Rouge, there was no gun in his hand. What happened in Minnesota, there was no gun in his hand. So they can't still shoot you if they don't have a gun.
Well, I mean, on all instances, and I'm not talking about any specific instance, in all instances, I think it's going to be helpful to have the police video cameras on the officers.
But they keep coming off. They keep falling off. The police video cameras
we need to fix that. But we need to get not just the last 30 seconds of a police encounter, but the full police encounter.
We've seen the full police encounters. We have got to stop denying this as an issue. If the police are doing something wrong, we need to prosecute that. If the police are not doing something wrong, then we need to understand that too. We need to fix the problem,
but let's agree that it's a small minority of police officers, right?
Very tiny.
Very tiny.
Yeah, it's very tiny.
But there's a lot of programs that have instituted wonderful training. I think Loudoun County,
they're fantastic.
If I could say something about that, it was
training is a very good training.
Friday before last, I did a ride-along with Loudoun County sheriffs, and I did 2 shifts, 2 different officers on my shift, and from 7 to 7, and from 8 o'clock in the evening till 5:30 in the morning, it was one call after another. And I commend Sheriff Chapman, Deputy Gass, Deputy Jacobson. They were awesome.
They were awesome.
They went into a number of just unbelievable situations where they didn't know what they were going to encounter. They handled it with grace. They were respectful to everyone. Mm-hmm. They were calm. They were cool. I believe the encounters that are happening, we need to look at it. We need to work on it. We need to fix it. But I believe our police officers, by and far, this is the rare instance. We've got many good police officers. We need to support our police officers. The tragedy in Dallas is just terrible.
The vast majority, when I say the vast, I mean 98, 99% of police officers, not only are they doing a good job, but they put their lives on the line every day for not enough money and not enough appreciation and not enough thank yous. They are our everyday heroes, our police officers, every single day. And I don't know anyone who has actually said that the police officers who are problematic are indicative of the police officers overall. They're absolutely not. That's not the issue.
That's what the rhetoric from a lot of rallies sounds.
That's what the right-wing media likes to portray.
I so disagree.
They're
NBC,
blanketing
CBS.
Black Lives Matter like it's some terrorist organization.
I will speak for myself and what happened in Loudoun yesterday when faith leaders and community leaders and police officers and normal citizens came forward. And one thing that came out of that was Sheriff Chapman actually offered a video of what to do when you get stopped by police, how to do that interaction. I talk to people. I have a feeling I probably talk to these communities more than you do. I'm just guessing. I probably do, and I can tell you, I can tell you that in our conversations and in our talks, there is never an indictment of police force whatsoever.
So the comments in the media, the comments in the media about the police are corrupt, the police must be stopped. In fact, even the word retaliation was used on this show, and I know you didn't mean it that way, but even you said that this retaliation leading one to believe that
individual person.
I know you didn't mean it that way. I know you didn't mean it that way.
No, I'm just describing what the guy in Dallas thought he was doing, but he was doing it against people who had nothing to do with those other crimes.
There's a lot of bad rhetoric out there.
Even if those police officers had something to do with those other incidents, the answer still wouldn't be to shoot them dead.
Right,
that still would not be the answer. That's never the answer.
Who are irresponsibly painting all police officers.
But there's also a lot of folks who are denying that this is a problem, who are denying that the issue with African American and Hispanic males getting killed at 3 times higher rate is a problem. Both those things have to stop. Both of those things have to stop.
I didn't say they didn't. I'm just saying it I'm just saying it. You know, when we have police officers being assassinated, that is something obviously we all oppose.
And no one here is arguing with that.
But there's been a lot of rhetoric out there that we need to.
Which is why I say thought leaders have to have these conversations in a responsible way.
Hey guys, we need to wrap up. So if everyone takes like 10, 15 seconds to just kind of, are there any thoughts that didn't come out of your mouth, Mike? Quick ones.
You know, there is a problem. I think we need to understand the causes of the problem, and it's not just renegade cops always. I mean, we do have a substantial problem in black neighborhoods. The crime rate is higher than it should be. Officers go in there responding to calls with a higher level of fear and nervousness and unsettlement than they do. You've got 70%, 70% of black children born out of wedlock with no father in the home.
So there are conditions that you're trying to make that. We better say that.
And none of that
for
minimizes
show.
anything that Phyllis said.
That's a really important issue, that we should have another discussion about.
Yes, it does.
John, thank you. Thank you for your public service.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of being here.
I would shake hands, but I've been coughing.
We'll just wave to you.
We'll see you next month on the road too.